I'm a pistol packing mama, yes I am. I'm a pistol packing mama, yes I am. I'm a pistol packing mama, and my husband sues Obama. I'm a pistol packing mama, yes I am.
Republican-controlled Texas State Senate voted largely along party lines not to remove embattled State Attorney General Ken Paxton from office. The Texas House had overwhelmingly voted to impeach him earlier this year.
Now, that used to be relatively rare, but starting in the Obama years, the number of those sort of lawsuits skyrocketed.
Voted Paxton on 16 separate articles of impeachment, including bribery, obstruction of justice, conspiracy, and abuse of the public trust. The charges center on Paxton's relationship with a wealthy donor.
What I do is I go into the office, I sue the federal government, and then I go home. I've sued the Obama administration now 25 times over the last 4 years.
That is not the smirk of a guy who just goes into the office, sues the government, and goes home, is it?
It's just complete and utter nonsense. Complete and utter nonsense. The 60 Republicans in the Texas House of Representatives and 2 Republicans in this body saw the truth, just like we all have seen the truth at home.
That's the smirk of a guy who goes into the office, sues the government, adjusts the office thermostat without telling anyone, steals someone's sandwich from the fridge, farts in the elevator, and then goes home.
I want to talk about impeachment in Texas.
Now, Abbott has since gone on to become governor of Texas, but his successor, Ken Paxton, was no less eager to sue the Obama administration.
Representatives from Koch Industries, Big Tobacco, payday lenders, and the NRA. The dress code? Resort casual. CBS News reviewed 88 donations over $50,000 and found more than half of the donors had matters under consideration by a state attorney general or had recently settled.
There's nothing like a hoedown.
This vote will be the vote you're remembered for most. Our members already knew that and have known that for the last 3 months. If only the House members who voted for impeachment would have followed that instruction in the House, we may not have been here. In the House, the vote to send the articles of impeachment against the Attorney General to the Senate happened in only a few days, with virtually no time for 150 members to even study the articles.
Paxton still faces a trial on felony securities fraud and an FBI investigation.
To extend protections for transgender kids in public schools, Paxton sued and said this.
Any man that decides that they want to declare themselves to be female for the day can walk into your daughter's locker room or bathroom. It now opens the door for anybody, no matter what they are and how they're thinking. They can change their gender for a day and have the ability to walk into a women's locker room. It's just not right.
What the fuck are you talking about? Obvious bigotry aside, transgender people don't just switch identity for convenience.
Listen, they all have their reasons. I'm pretty sure that what we saw over the last day or so in this so-called deliberation has just been about politics rather than seeking justice. It's pretty clear. We all felt this going into this thing, that this was going to be a quote-unquote political trial with a capital P, and that's indeed what's happened here. Republicans sought to save their ass rather than do the right thing here. And the right thing is to convict a man that has stolen public money, that has used money from a developer to go out and pay for the renovations to his house, and only until the day he got caught, he decided to pay for those renovations. He stole public money by asking people to go out and have us in this body go out and pay for the sham that he created when 7 highly conservative Republican whistleblowers started to call him out. He has stolen our resources. He has abrogated his responsibility to taxpayers. I mean, you name it. You all saw it for the last 7 days. It's right here. It's all in black and white.
Absolutely absurd. The crookedness abounds in this state.
To do that, I think, on the ground here in Texas, particularly as we saw politics and the political machinery fire up, I think in many ways it is not a surprise to see the outcome that we saw this afternoon.
This afternoon, Mr. Paxton issued a statement. He blamed President Biden, and he blamed the Republican Speaker of the Texas House who he called a liberal for all this, saying it's just politics.
This is the Collin County Courthouse, where a Dallas attorney accidentally left a $1,000 pen at the metal detectors. This is Ken Paxton, the indicted Texas Attorney General, rummaging through the metal detector trays and stealing that $1,000 pen. And this is Ken Paxton, the indicted Texas Attorney General, walking away with a stolen pen.
I hope you check out my members only section. Adding new things every day, and there's gonna be more. So y'all come back.
He will fight on behalf of all Texans, and he won't steal your pen.
Increasingly partisan. And when you look at how Ken Paxton has used his power, it is hard not to think that that is a bad thing.
Like no other. Now let me tell you about a little town.
On the banks of Lake Palestine, some 3 hours north of Houston, this dot on the map has quite a reputation among those who drive through.
They're everywhere. Literally everywhere.
They run back and forth, back and forth.
A lot of officers policing a very small number of people.
Only 249 people, says the sign on the edge of town. And when you add up all the full-time cops and reserves,
50 officers.
Good Lord, that's crazy.
If it's such a small town, why do we need so many? It makes no sense. Why do you need that many
Now,
officers?
Paxton has actually spent almost his entire time in office under indictment and is awaiting trial for securities fraud.
A microcosm of this phenomenon is Coffee City, Texas.
how do we know? KHOU 11 Investigates obtained personnel records from other police agencies and found more than half of Coffee City officers had been suspended, demoted, terminated, or dishonorably discharged from their previous jobs. A dozen were even criminally charged.
A small little right-wing Republican town, completely controlled by Republicans.
Their prior discipline ranges from excessive force to public drunkenness, untruthfulness, and association with known criminals. Criminal charges include DWI, theft, aggravated assault, family violence, and endangering a child.
If you knowingly are hiring an officer that has a very troubled past and history and has no business to be wearing a uniform, and it's a very, very precarious slope that city is engaging in by hiring.
This is the man who hired them. Chief John J. Portillo quadrupled the department's size since he took the job 2 years ago. He says to provide 24/7 coverage for the town.
Why would you hire so many people with all these red flags?
There's more to just what's on paper. I would say 75%, if not more, they're being retaliated against from their agency.
Retaliate?
Mm-hmm.
Why would you take a chance, Chief?
I try to look at the good in everybody, and I believe everybody deserves an opportunity.
You give a lot of opportunities.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
The opportunity to wear a badge allows his officers to work extra jobs, which can mean real money, $50 an hour or more.
I mean, let's not hide it from anybody. They're making probably about $80,000 to $100,000 a year doing that.
Completely controlled by good old boys.
And on this day, watch how John J. Portillo behaves.
I'm about to call Garcia and tell him he's going to be this next election.
It's an expletive-filled rant launched at the elected constable of Harris County Precinct 2, Jerry Garcia.
I'll call Garcia right now. Tell his his chain of command is.
Portillo wanted Precinct 2 to file charges on a man he says assaulted him at the complex. It was just one of many requests the constable says kept coming in from off-duty Coffee City cops.
Which at first was, no big deal. We help anybody and everybody. But then we noticed that it was becoming a pattern.
That pattern, the constable says, was draining resources. So Garcia reached out to the Harris County District Attorney's Office.
And we were advised to tell Chief Portillo that he had to file the charges.
But when deputies did just that, Portillo left a nasty voicemail.
And your captains, lieutenants, or whoever those numbnuts are that you have working for you, tell them your guy's not to help us out.
It saddened me, it upset me to hear that. This isn't something small. This is,
After alerting Coffee City's mayor, I don't see very much there that warrants any disciplinary action from the city, the mayor wrote. The officers are contracted by the property for off-duty police protection. You may want to reach out to them with any complaints.
I was amped up. And I apologized to my city council, At City Council.
Did you apologize to Constable Garcia?
No, I haven't had a chance. I haven't talked to him.
The cussing incident happened 6 months ago. It's not the only example we found that calls into question Portillo's character and integrity. In his application to become Coffee City's chief, he never listed this, a DWI charge out of Florida in which he failed to appear in court.
Why wouldn't you disclose that, Chief?
Didn't disclose it. It was over 10 years ago.
You had an active warrant.
Huh? That was disposed of.
No, it wasn't. Court records show the day after our interview, Portillo hired a Florida defense attorney who filed a not guilty plea in the case.
Now, this little town issues the most tickets of any town in Texas, of even twice their size. 5,000 last year. And with only 250 people in the town, you wonder why that might be.
But is it all above board? The warrant division is a performance-based division, and officers' pay is based on the failure to appears they collect.
They're basically bounty hunters in a way.
Freeman says that amounts to a commission for collecting fines.
It doesn't make any sense. From an ethical perspective, it just screams questions about the legitimacy of what they're doing.
I know what you're thinking. Typical small town, financing its entire government with tickets. That's true, but that's not what's happening here.
Okay. Is that legal?
Oh, I believe so.
2 days after our interview, Coffee City PD changed course, sending out this email to warrant detectives that said, due to unforeseen difficulties, the program has been suspended until such time as I can make sure that we are in compliance with labor laws.
What we got here is a wayward pound for the unwanted dogs of the police force.
KHEO 11 Investigates revealed how Portillo routinely hired officers who had been suspended, demoted, terminated, or dishonorably discharged from their previous law enforcement jobs for a wide range of misconduct or even criminal charges.
Are you a crooked cop? Come to Coffee City, Texas. We got a place for you. Did you beat up your wife? Hey, we got a job for you in Coffee City, Texas. What's that? A felony? Don't even worry about it. Come on down to Coffee City, Texas. We're going to hire you on the spot.
From the looks of it, you weren't being truthful on the application to which you hold the job this day. Chief?
Yeah, I understand. I mean, but that's not what it is. I'm not being truthful.
You forgot?
I put down everything that was in my mind when I filled out my application to the best of my knowledge.
Now, would you believe that this little town has 50 cops? And to hear the locals tell it, it's a fucking police state.
Since we moved here, it was every day cop pulling in for one reason or another.
Something needed to happen. That's for sure.
This is Texas. But that's not what this video's about.
Portillo had tried to email his resignation before the meeting, but council members refused to accept it and instead outright fired the chief. And in a bombshell move, it also voted to deactivate the department as a whole. As for the 50 full-time and reserve officers, we're told they will not be allowed to perform police officer activities unless or until they're picked up by another department.
Ken Paxton knows. Crookedness abounds until you get a Republican on TV.
I'm sure Nate Paul's singing like a bird. I'm sure Laura Olson, the reason she wasn't here is because she was going to plead the Fifth Amendment. We all know the truth. And for anybody that backs Ken Paxton, just open your eyes and open your ears to the facts that you heard all for the last 2 weeks. It's blatantly obvious.
Brought forward by 8 whistleblowers in the fall of 2020. People who sat at the right hand of Ken Paxton, top attorneys in his own agency who shared the same Christian conservative values.
Every damn one of Ken Paxton's charges or allegations are from years ago. He's been on the take since he got the job.
They got pressure from outside influences. And whether that pressure came in through phone calls or just the harsh reality that if they voted to convict Ken Paxton, they would lose their race. That is the absolute truth. That is the sad and absolute truth. because Ken Paxton is a crook.
He's calling this a sham impeachment coordinated by the Biden administration with liberal House Speaker Dade Phelan and his kangaroo court that has cost taxpayers millions of dollars, disrupted the work of the Office of Attorney General, and left a dark and permanent stain on the Texas House. And he's also promising that the Biden administration needs to buckle up because your lawless policies will not go unchallenged. And says his next address to the nation will be next week on Tucker Carlson.
Yes, Ken Paxton did accept a bribe. He did benefit from helping a wealthy Austin investor who was also one of his campaign contributors.
He's been giving his friends jobs. He's been hiding his damn mistress down in San Antonio.
He stole from the taxpayers of Texas. He continues to do so now. And what has happened here is an absolute abrogation of our responsibility. The message to Texans and to every kid in Texas is run for office, run for the Attorney General, and you can cheat, lie, and steal just like Ken Paxton. That's a sad message for all Texans here today and for people across this country. Understand there are people that made political decisions. Let's be real clear. I wasn't going to convince anybody about what was right here to do. There was a lot of good Republicans that really spent some time on it. In the end, they made their own political decisions, and they can speak for themselves. They can walk outside that room and speak for themselves. But under no circumstances am I going to sit there in a room while this lieutenant governor sits there and holds in contempt a legislative body across the hall that did their absolute duty, and over 60 Republicans sought to impeach this man. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to be part of that farce.
Ken Paxton's influence extends beyond the borders of the state of Texas. He's been a thorn in the side of Democratic presidents, a strong ally of Donald Trump. How is this going to affect his influence? How does this affect his standing?
In the minds of many political scientists, this is going to give Ken Paxton a broad license to double down on some of the deeply Christian conservative far-right agenda here in Texas, but again, beyond. And Ken Paxton speaking to that himself in his statement today, saying that the Biden administration should get ready, that he will continue to target their agendas and their policies, taking his work here in Texas and putting it on a national stage.
They've got to go deal with their own voters. I would only tell their constituents to read the paper, to watch TV, look at the facts. Open your eyes and open your ears because you've been scammed, lied to, and bamboozled by Ken Paxton. Absolutely. Absolutely. The facts are the facts.
But surprise, surprise, they're going to let that go. Because this is a show trial. Wouldn't even be happening if it wasn't on TV.
Ken Paxton is far from out of the woods and far from being done in the courtroom. There are those 3 state security felony fraud charges that he is still facing. That is happening in Houston, and a judge in Harris County has said that she wants to try to get this case moving forward. It goes back 8 years. But in addition to that, we know through our own reporting that there is an ongoing federal investigation into Ken Paxton concerning these same allegations, or essentially these same allegations. And then last but not least, Ken Paxton is the subject of 2 ongoing complaints by the state bar of Texas, and whether or not he violated the terms of his license, his law license here in the state.
He told county clerks that they could refuse to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples. He was a lead plaintiff in a lawsuit that shot down an Obama-era rule that would have made 4 million people eligible for overtime pay.
But Ken Paxton put himself out there and got himself busted. Huh, just like this cop.
Is that legal?
Oh, I believe so.
Hooking up his crooked friends and getting a kickback every bit of the way. This whole damn bushel's crooked. But are you going to sit here and tell me that the city council didn't notice 50 cops on the payroll? Did the mayor not notice? There's no way in hell this went unnoticed. And the state of Texas didn't move on the crooked ass Attorney General until he made them look bad. They were on board when he was their boy. And that's how it is in Texas. Everybody's on board, as long as you're their boy. That's a Republican phenomenon.
That's actually a cause for genuine hope, because remember, that is where Ken Paxton is running. And if there is one thing sure to damage Ken Paxton's reputation, it's an awareness of Ken Paxton's reputation.
That's a church phenomenon. The idea that you would turn your back on your family and ignore the obvious. Because this guy said so. Republicans are on board with the crookedness. And it's because they're on the take. I submit that there's a lot more to this story, because crookedness abounds in Texas. The sad thing is, we don't have an attorney general's office. Right now, it's all blown up with this impeachment because crookedness abounds in Texas. Covering up the crookedness that the AG did for them. There's damn sure no cops to call, because the AG went after cops he didn't like. Sound familiar? That's the Republicans' new MO. Enemies. That's what it is. There's no argument, there's no debate, there's no logical discussion. That's the enemy, go get him. Oh wait, he's a Republican? There's not going to be an investigation. No one's going to jail. All these cops are going to quietly go get a job elsewhere. Because by God, this is Texas. And crookedness abounds. If you pay the right people and don't piss off the other ones, you're fine. But I sure remember when he was Trump's boy. He was the darling of the right. A stalwart beacon in a liberal darkness. The Texas AG's office stood out as one of the scum-suckingest pieces of shit to ever hold the office.
Supposed to have access to on the day you get caught. For 75 days, this man didn't pay his invoice because there was no invoice. It wasn't until he got caught, the information and the evidence was right there, right in front of us for all to see.
And then it turned out he was on the take. Go fig.
They obviously have their own problems. But the fact is, Republicans of conscience need to have a real deliberation with themselves and understand what's truly happening within their own party.
Don't worry. He'll have an incredibly rich life. Because he's made millions while he was AG.
If this was indeed hogwash, as his attorney suggested, and the only hogwash that we have here is the fact that Ken Paxton has had a political outcome, and not a judicial outcome, by Republicans that would rather stay in office and care more about the next election than to do the right thing. Because the facts were proven black and white. We all saw it. We all absolutely saw it.
Because all you got to do in Texas is pay the right people. Ask Elon. He knows. I'm Zachariah, Lone-Star Liberal. Y'all take it easy.
Well, forget the securities case. Let's see what happens with the FBI over the next few weeks. We all know that Nate Paul's been arrested. And so let's see. I imagine he's singing like a jaybird, and we'll see more from Mr. Paxton here in the next few weeks. Thank y'all.
I'm a pistol packing mama, yes I am.